We bought this hot tub to provide the family with a much needed distraction during lockdown, and over 3 years ago I replaced the absolutely hopeless inflatable lid on it with a PIR insulated cover. Now this is remarkably still going strong, but I wanted to give you all an update today to explain how we've got on with this cover, my new reboot of it to hopefully give it another couple of years use, what I've learned, what I could have done better, and what you guys have also told me in the comments section about what you've done with yours. So that if any of you are thinking of what to do with your hopeless leaking inflatable lid, you are armed with all the information you need to choose the right DIY replacement, which will save you loads of money on your heating bills. So let's have a quick recap on what went on in 2021. Firstly, I had this rubbish inflatable lid which came with the hot tub and which was full of water and was leaking air through these holes in spite of multiple attempts at puncture repair. So I bought 2 sheets of PIR and shaped them to form a new cover. Oh, I wish I'd stuck with this shape, but sadly I couldn't because back then I wanted to preserve the skirt that was attached to the cover and which the old inflatable lid fit inside. So I reduced the size of the PIR, which was a big mistake in hindsight, and squeezed it into the skirt. I used aluminium foil tape around the cut edges to protect the foam and also where the 2 pieces were joined in the middle. And that was it. The video went out there and 188,000 of you have kindly viewed it, largely agreeing with me that those inflatable lids are rubbish and giving some really interesting ideas and feedback that I'll come on to in a minute. But in spite of the drawbacks of this prototype lid, it's done brilliantly for nearly 3 years until the foil tape split in the winter. I switched the tub off and we sort of neglected it at the bottom of the garden. Last month, after an intensive clean, I decided to resurrect the hot tub and sort out that lid. But first up, a question. Was I mad to use PIR? To be honest with you, I didn't know how this was going to last. PIR, we all know, is something you shouldn't really get wet. But this has been sort of consistently damp in its hot tub environment. And look, it's survived really, really well. You've got the foil around the edge, which is showing no signs of tarnishing. I had a bit more of an issue with the foil on the top, which was more exposed to the chlorine. So I got around that issue by covering it in Gorilla Tape. More on that in a minute. But the foil face of the PIR itself has survived pretty well. It certainly hasn't oxidized or whatever it is the chlorine does to it. And yeah, it's easy to work with. We're going to sort this out. But was I right to use PIR? Well, not really, but kind of. The big advantage of PIRs we'll come on to in a minute is the sizes that you can get it in, namely 2.4 by 1.2 meters. But the problem is you've got to protect that foil. I mean, not so much the foil inbuilt in the PR, but any other foil that you use. I used Gorilla Tape, which was expensive and not completely effective, but there are some much more effective ways that you have come up with, which I'll talk about in a minute. But as some of you pointed out in the comments below my last video, and it's worth trawling through those if you're planning your own replacement lid, XPS foam is a far superior alternative to PIR. As this is designed for hardy environments, closed cell structure is much better for keeping moisture out, and not having a foil cover on it, you don't have to worry about encapsulating it in some sort of polythene. Which is important because if the foil reacts with the chlorine, it can give you real problems with water treatment. But there is a catch with XPS. While I'm sure this isn't the complete case, it's very hard to get hold of it in any sizes other than 1.25 by 0.6 meters. So with my lid being a 1.7 meter diameter, you're going to need quite a lot of sheets, probably 2 packs of 8. And you've still got the problem of finding a way to glue or tape them together, which at sort of 90 quid plus delivery is setting you back a similar amount, or slightly more actually, than 2 sheets of PIR at 100mm, which is the thickness I used on this replacement lid. There's this full-length Jacko board, but it's only half width and expensive. And the other ingenious suggestion people have made is to take that written off cover and fill it with expanding foam. And the general consensus is this works, but you need about 6 to 7 cans. This is probably on balance the most cost-effective solution, but I'm intrigued to know how you've managed to get the expanding foam to fill every single tube, let alone get it back into the skirt afterwards. So those are the options, but I had mine and decided I could breathe new life into it, at least for a year or 2. The structure of the hot tub is still great, but it's showing signs of age, with the fake tiles now very bleached on a lot of the straps, torn as the fabric has disintegrated. So I decided I'd cut that skirt off as this was the reason I couldn't make the lid big enough in the first place. The insulated lid left a few gaps around the edge and fell into the water too easily, so I decided to enlarge it. To do that, I cut each half in two so that I could add an extra piece in the middle. From some 1" or 25mm PIR offcuts I had left over from the kitchen refurb. To give this strength, I cut a groove in the insulation, making a few cuts to the right depth with my circular saw before excavating the slot with a chisel, and added a sort of loose tenon which I then fixed in place with expanding foam adhesive. More expanding foam into the joint and I could put the two quarters together to make an enlarged half, that I then locked in place with foil tape, and with each enlarged half made I could repeat the process to finally make the circle whole again, patching those areas where the foil had torn off the PIR with more foil tape. I bought 3 rolls of that Gorilla Tape, expecting to be able to cover the whole of the underside of the lid. That was my plan, to stop any tarnishing, but those 3 rolls only covered the extra foil I'd put on. So not really very satisfactory. And there's been quite an interesting comment about using carpet protector. So thank you Park End North for that. This is exactly the sort of thing you need to be able to swathe that lid in lots of polythene to stop the chlorine getting to it. I was a bit sceptical though about whether this stuff would be sticky enough. But I've stuck a bit down here and, well, I think it probably would do the job actually. Look, it's peeling off the foil there. Oops. So that is the end of that on this sort of chilly late September morning, and I think given the weather is changing now, it's more important than ever to get your hot tub lid insulated if you're going to use this throughout the winter. A lot of people have asked after the last video how much electricity it's saved. I don't know the answer to that, but it has got to be a lot more effective than that inflatable lid, and in fact there have been times when I've come down here where the temperature that I've set the hot tub to is actually lower than the temperature inside the tub. So that's an example of how the insulation is doing its job. And if you look at the thermal imaging, you can see how much colder it is on top than it is at the sides. And don't be distracted by this big yellow patch here. That is where the sun is shining on the lid. And I switched the heating off last night, and so in the last 12 hours it's gone down from 39 to 33 degrees. What do we conclude? Well, basically XPS, if you can get hold of it, maybe 50mm sheets sort of interlocked to create the cover is probably a superior solution, but provided you can wrap the PIR to protect the foil from oxidizing and from all the issues that that can give you in terms of maintaining the correct pH levels in your tub, I think the PIR route is probably the simplest and most cost effective. And some of you, like Andrew, have come up with some really enterprising solutions. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing that with us. Also, and I don't know what it's like, but I got contacted by somebody after the last vid who operates an inflatable hot tub repair service. And I think what I will do with this one is go and buy another roll of that carpet protector and wrap it up really well so that all that foil is completely protected from the chlorine. Absolutely right thing to do to cut away that skirt. It's actually easier to lift the lid on and off without having the cover attached to it, although you do have to be a bit more careful not to sort of jag it on things because obviously the foil is slightly fragile. But the crucial thing about cutting away that skirt is it's left me ruining the fact that I had that fantastic shape which stopped any heat getting out at all, and unfortunately now I've got this shape which is better because I've enlarged it, but it's still not perfect, as you can see here. And you can clearly see the heat leakage caused by that gap. So I think if you can go with a shape with that chamfered edge like I started off with, you're going to minimize any heat loss in that hot tub. And after all, as you can see, the cover does fit on really well with that slightly raised lid. So that's it for today. I hope you found that useful. I did get slightly criticized by a couple of people when I did this last video by saying this isn't really core to your DIY, but you know, a lot of us have got hot tubs and almost all of us have had problems with these terrible lids. Best Way and the other hot tub makers really need to sort out this issue because it's conning consumers, I think, providing an inflatable lid that's only covered by a 6-month warranty. So go out there and sort yours out and you won't regret it. See you next week when we return inside to the kitchen renovation. Oh, and if you're new to my channel, it would mean so much to me to have you subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here, and don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you get notified of all my future uploads. Thanks for watching. See you soon.